So that's what we discussed. Now we will going to talk about another interesting topic here that is called the blob storage life cycle. Now, data sets have unique life cycle. Early in the life cycle, people access some data, but after some time, they don't want to use the data more frequently. So why to keep the data in the main memory? Because it will going to cost you extra. Storage cost is extra. So we want to move the data into less costly resources or less costly place. So how to do that? So what are the different options available for that? So we need to understand that, and to work with this, we need to talk about what are the excess tier options available and how to work with the lifecycle policies and how to bring the data back into the main memory. So there are three access tiers which are supported by blob storage. Whenever you are working with a standard tier, you can work with all three. Whenever you create a storage account with a performance level called standard, you will get all hot, cool, and archive. But if you're working with the premium, right, and that too with the blob storage, then hot and archive is the only option. Sorry, hot is the only option. Archive is not there. I'll talk about it in a minute, that how it works. Now, what is hot? Whenever you are working with the data which need to be manipulated on a regular basis, like transactional data, right? So you can keep the data in the hot tier. It is the most frequently used data. But sometimes it happens that after a few months or after a few days, you'd feel like, no, you don't want to use this data on a regular basis. So why to keep the data in a main memory? I would like to keep the data somewhere which is less cheaper than the hot tier. So we can move the data into a cool tier. So it is used to keep your less frequently accessed data. So it is optimized for storing large amount of data that is infrequently accessed and stored for at least 30 days. Means if you move your data to the cool tier, it will keep the data for 30 days at least. And then you can move it to the other tiers like archive tier, right? An archive tier is a place where you can keep the data like a for backup. Maybe once in a blue moon, you want to read the data, maybe for analysis purpose and so. So it is rarely accessed data. Now, you can keep the data for at least 180 days in the archive tier. The archive tier is the most cost effective option for storing the data, but accessing the data from there is most expensive because whenever you are moving your data from hot to cool and cool to archive or directly from hot to archive, right? So if you want to read this data, you have to bring the data back to the hot tier or cool tier, then only you can work with it. And when you are keep moving your data from hot to archive, so you are hydrating it. And when you are bringing it back, you are rehydrating it. So we will talk about that thing as well. So we need to understand this life cycle. So usually, whenever you want to move your data from one tier to another tier, you can do it manually as well. But there are thousands of the files. It is not possible for you to move your files from one tier to another manually. So in that case, you need to create some rules, and that is what we call policies. And based on the policies, your file will going to move from one tier to the another automatically. And you can create this policy for all the containers in a storage account, for a specific container, or for a specific file. So choice will be yours. So the lifecycle management policy lets you to transition blobs to a cool storage tier, like hot to cool, hot to archive, or cool to archive, to optimize for the performance and the cost. And once it is an archive, then after that, if nobody is using it, then you feel like that I don't need it in future, you can delete that. And whatever rules you will define, these rules will run once per day at a storage account level. And now you can apply a rule which can be applied at a storage account level or a container level or a specific folder or a file level. So you can see here, we have images. So if I click on it, right? So if I get into that, because it is about file. So I have one file, and you can see this file is using hot tier. So when I uploaded it, I'll directly upload it in hot tier. Now, at any point of time, what I can do is I can change the tier manually. So if I click on it from hot to cool, cool, right, and cold and archive, I can do that. So if I move to cool, so it is still accessible. When I move to cool, it is instant, right? It moves to the cool, and still I can access this URL, right? Let's go to the properties, grab the URL of it from overview. I have set anonymous so I can access it, right? It is accessible. And if I want, I can bring it back instantly. So change the tier. I can just click here, and then I can say bring it to hot tier. So instantly it comes into hot tier. But if I move this file to archive tier, so it takes time when we need to bring it back. So when I say that I want to move it to archive tier, so access tier last modified, I click save. So it will take time to bring it back. Now, this is an archive tier, right? So it is in in cache, so it might take some time to get it out to means remove from the cache. I have to remove it from the cache, then I won't be able to access it. If I need to access this file, then what I need to bring it back to the cool or archive tier. But when I'm bringing it back, so you can see change tier. So when I say that I want to bring it hot, it asks me there are two options, right? Rehydration priority. Standard. When you choose standard, it will take almost 15 hours to bring that back into the main tier. But sometime I want it to be done instantly. Instantly means within 1 hour. So I can choose high rehydration priority. Basically, this priority says that I will override the standard tier and I will try to bring the data back into the hot tier within 1 hour. But the size of the file should not be more than 10 GB. Then I'll bring it back. And you save it, then it will take time to bring it back. Now you can see rehydration is pending. If you go there and choose the changed here, you will see that it says that rehydration is pending. So that's what they're trying to explain that in the next slide. But sorry, my bad, I forgot to tell you the rules. So it is a manual process. But I don't want to do it manually because there are thousands of the files. I can't do it manually. So what I can do is I can change the setting with the policies. So at a storage account level, when I scroll down, there is a setting called Lifecycle Management Policy. So I'm just trying to figure it out where it is. This is the one, Lifecycle Management Policy. So when I went into the Lifecycle Management Policy, I will define the rules, right? So I can create a rule. I can add a rule. So when you are adding a rule, it is asking me various options that what should be the rule name. So rule one, I can give it a name, rule one. Then apply this rule to all blobs in your storage account without any filter. Yes. So this rule is applied to the files which are uploaded with blob or append blob. I say both. So base blob means I don't want to add any, filtration or anything. So I click next. So I can add rule. So once your file is uploaded into the hot tier, right, I want to keep it for 30 days. Then I want to move it to the next area. Just let me see. Just give me a minute. Okay. Now you can see move to cool storage. So for infrequent access data, you want to keep on cool storage for at least 30 days. Right. Then add another condition. If nobody is moving it for the next 30 days, 30 days in hot tier, then it moves to the cool tier. And nobody has modified it in the cool tier. Then last modified date is 60, 30 days in the hot tier, 30 days in a cool tier. Then my target is to move it to the next level, that is a cold storage. And last but not the least, I'll say if nobody has played with that file for the last 90 days, 30 days in hot tier, 30 days in cool tier and 30 days in cold tier, then I will archive that. Right, I can do that. And finally, if nobody has deleted it or modified that in last 120 days or 180 days, let's say, then what I need, I will delete the blob. So I'm creating this policy. So I can add this policy. I can add another rule, which is for a specific file or a specific container. So that is also possible. So you have to just click on limit blob. So it will add another tab, filter set, right? So when you define the settings, right, you specified that rule one, you can rule two. So you can see next, you define the rules and then you go to the filter set. So when you click on the filter set, let me just click here, just want to show you the filter set. So you can add a prefix like my container slash star.jpg. So this will apply only JPG files. So you can configure that lifecycle rules here. And if you click on this rule, you can even work with a code view. Means actually it is just like a JSON file where it has defined the rules. So choice is yours, either you work here or graphically. So you can see if you make any changes here, it will affect the graphical thing, right? So because this is the file which is behind the scenes from which the graph is generated, right? GUI is generated. So you can work with any. So that's what they're trying to talk about in this explore the blob storage lifecycle. So you can move from hot to cool, cool to archive, archive to hot, or archive to cool and cool to hot. But if you're doing with the premium plan, so you only have one option in the premium that you can move it to the hot, hot and delete. You can create a policy only to delete the item from the hot, because in premium plan, there is no option to cool, cold or archive. This option is not there. So I have already explained it to you. What is a policy? Policy is a collection of rules, and each rule within the policy has several parameters like name, whether it is enabled or not, on which type it is working on, what is the definition, right? And each rule defines the filter set that on which particular category of the files it will going to work on. The filter set limit rule action to certain set of objects. So action set applies the tier or delete action to filter the set of objects. So I have discussed everything in front of you, right? So you are defining all the options that are there into it. So this is an example of the blob storage lifecycle policy. So you have a rule name is rule one, enabled. Yes, it is ready. Type is lifecycle. And in the definition, you actually define that how it will move from one stage to the another. So that is how it works. You can have many rules in the policies. So I created this policy graphically, but you can use CLI or PowerShell also to create this policy. So AZ storage account. What do you want to do with the storage account? I want to work with a setting called management policy. What do you want? I want to create it. Then you specify the name of the storage account, where the policy need to be implemented, policy, the JSON file where you have defined that policy, and the resource group where the storage account is there. So it will try to find the storage account in that resource group. If it is there, then the policy will be applied on that, which is defined in this JSON file. I told you about rehydration. So when you want to bring the data back from archive tier, so there are two ways. One, you can simply clone it. You can make a copy of that file and bring it into the hot tier with their different name. So it is a totally new file. It has nothing to do with the existing file in the into the into the archive folder. It is just making a copy of it and bringing it back in the hot tier. Second option, which I have shown it to you, is when you are moving your file from archive to hot tier, so you can use standard priority or higher priority. So that is the option that you can go with, right? So copy and archive blob to an online tier means the first option that I told you, right? Copy the file, put it in a hot tier with a new name. If you make any changes into the hot tier, it will not affect the archive because it is a copy. But second one is change the blob access tier to an online tier, like with the standard priority or higher priority. So it will take time. Standard priority will take approximately 15 hours and high priority will